Hey, what's up? Today I'm gonna do something a little different. I'm actually gonna film a real life video, I guess, rather than just a normal voiceover on my Magic Arena gameplay. Um, it's been a while since I've actually uploaded anything in real life, to be honest. I think I started my channel back in 2008, kind of for fun. I was just filming and throwing up, random Yu-Gi-Oh deck profiles and just music. And I've been sort of inactive. I've used YouTube a lot, but never really um, decided to upload anything in almost 12 years I've been on here. Um, I'm not really looking to grow the channel big or anything like that. Just kind of this is all just for fun. I mostly just want to practice my editing skills and talking and voiceover and things like that. And it's great to share some of the stuff I like to do with other people and get their opinions on it if you decide to leave a comment or something. Anyways, today I'm gonna go ahead and go over my uh, Esper control deck for the modern format and kind of show you what cards I'm playing and talk about it a little bit. Hopefully, it doesn't take too long, but I typically rant on quite a bit. So over here, I got my main deck. I mean, I've played maybe about 2 or 3 or 4 tournaments. I haven't really been able to test it out too much. But in the tournament results, each time I played, I took out some cards, made some changes, and things like that, and just been kind of testing the deck out, getting a feel for the deck. I mostly played with my Grixis deck, which I'll show later, but I want to improve this deck and see how far I can take it, and if I can make it any better. Keep in mind, it's more of a casual deck, I guess. It's competitive but casual at the same time. I guess that doesn't really make sense, but I'm not looking to go to GP and win that or anything like that. But I am hoping to top my locos and maybe get a win or there, or a win here or there. And so there are cards in here that are going to be pricey. So I don't generally recommend this as a deck that you would start out, especially if you're on more limited budget. I collected these cards over time, and even though I kind of was somewhat recently got into modern, about a couple months ago. So a lot of these cards are from my standard decks and my pioneer decks that I was trying to play in real life, but those formats kind of went away once COVID hit. So uh, I guess game stores around my area they like modern, so try to swap over to modern and try that this format out. And the reason why I made this deck was as I was climbing through arena, historic and stuff, and even before then I used to play Esper in standard back in M19, M20 when Big Teferi was around. I was playing that on arena standard, and then really liked the way the deck worked and the colors. Same with Grixis. Those are my two favorite colors or color groups, I guess. And so just wanted to try this deck out, and hopefully it performs. This deck, it's a little bit Planeswalker heavy. It's just kind of a fair warning. Um, the Planeswalkers are cool, but they're kind of relatively weak in modern because Light and Bolt exists, creatures exist, and it's very fast and aggro heavy type of format. And so Planeswalkers are a little bit slow and they're a little bit weak to those. And so you don't always get the greatest value out of them as you would with some other formats like Standard or Historic or even Pioneer. So Planeswalkers in general aren't super great unless you're like Oko or something. But that's here near here or there. So let me go ahead and just start off. So here I'm gonna go through my I guess one mana lineup here. So first off, I got 3 Prismatic Endings. Prismatic Endings, great card, and hopefully the glare is not too bad here. So Prismatic Ending, great removal card. Generally, you're casting this for 1 or 2 mana, and it's exile basically anything that you want except for a non-land, which is really good. Hits a lot of things. Almost honestly never dead. The only thing that it struggles against is things that are more than 3 mana, obviously. So like big planeswalker or not, but I wouldn't say big planeswalker, but big mana stuff that are 4 and higher. Um, Creature or planeswalker, this card has a little bit more time dealing with that, and so you could play. I've seen most builds play either 2 to 4 copies, and so I decided to go with 3 and just see that early removal against really fast aggro deck, which there's a lot in my area, and they like to play Ragavan and Darcy and things like that, and so you need something kind of early to deal with those type of cards. Otherwise, you're going to be dead. I mean, aggro is um, Control's worst matchup. To sort of back that up, I have here. Sorry, my deck is a little out of order. 4 Fatal Pushes. Fatal is a great removal card and very mana efficient. Now, obviously, you're not always going to get the Revolt trigger, but you do have quite a lot of fetch lands to try to help that happen. And most of the time, most people aren't playing any real big creatures over 4 mana anyways, and so this is deals with most things in the format. And most of the threats in this current meta right now are either 1 or 2 mana. So this does a really good job at helping you fight off aggro early game and maintaining your control of the board state. Next off, I have here's kind of a weird lineup. I have essentially, I'll just leave my deck up here so I don't fiddle around with it too much. I have 2 Thoughtseize and 2 Opt. So Thoughtseize I really liked back in when I used to play Esper on well, when I play Esper on Arena in Historic, I really like Thoughtseize. It's a great removal card, or great hand disruption card, sorry. And it's kind of similar to like Thought Erasure. The only issue I found in this, well, I guess any format really, is that while it's really good, it's painful. Especially in this deck, you'll see later why it's a little painful. I do play quite a bit of shocks and quite a bit of fetch lands. On top of, I play maximum amount of Snapcasters, which will allow me to recast this card multiple times, and so I'm really just pinging myself a lot. I mean, it might be better to play Inquisition over the Thoughtseize. I used to play 4, and I found out I was really burning through my health a lot, and while I was maintaining control of the board and the hand, sometimes my opponent would just lightning bolt me in the face and I would just die there. So so that's the one thing to be wary about this card. It's great, but you do kind of clock yourself a little bit quicker, especially if you do a shock land and Thoughtseize. That's like 4 health. That's a good chunk of your life gone. I think another thing about this card, I can't quite remember my talking point about this card. So in Esper, a lot of people choose to either go the counterspell route, so it's like the draw goal style, or you play the tap out and go from there. So most people won't play both hands disruption and counter spells in their deck. They'll just go one way or the other. I try to do a hybrid because I still think information is really good. For 1 mana to essentially just see your opponent's hand, I think that's still valuable, even though you have the counter spells and things like that. I like using Thoughtseize to pave the way to safely play my Planeswalker and to know what my opponent has and what their game plan is. So for me, information is quite valuable, but you do run the risk of pinging yourself for too much. Opt here, you could basically play any cantrips really. I only chose to play Opt because there's certain cards in this deck that I was going to compare Opt to Consider, which is the new 1 mana cantrip card that's been pretty powerful lately. I'm choosing to play Opt over Consider, mainly because there's certain cards in my deck that I only play 1 or 2 copies of or something like that, and I don't always want to draw the card, but I may want to draw it later, so I don't really want to send it to the grave. Granted, it probably still is better to play Consider, because you can, if you're flooding out, you can just dump your lands to the grave, not have to worry about redrawing them or reshuffling them. So you are deck thinning a little bit better with the Consider. But for Opt, I'm namely using Opt to try to find lands. A couple of my games, I do play quite a bit of lands. I do play 25 lands in this particular build, but a few times I found myself just getting stuck at 3 lands for some reason, or even not having the right colors for my lands. And that might be just my fault that I'm not building my land base correctly. But I figured, okay, I can play, rather than playing like 26 lands, I can play 2 cantrips, and that should kind of help things out. It will also help with the Snapcaster plays, because back then when I used to play 4 Thoughtseize, this essentially was the Thougtseize. Like I mentioned, I was pinging myself down a lot, and I want to cast, sometimes just cast the Snapcasters without losing health, or trying to get some value out of them, get a +1. So these would help with that. Next thing here, we got 2 Dam. Just a great board wipe, very versatile. 2 black is not too hard to get in my mana base, so you can always, almost most of the time, play it on turn 2 if you need to actually hit something. Otherwise, just an efficient removal. Acts as a board wipe too, or acts as a God of Wrath, or Wrath of God, or Judgment, Day of Judgment. So pretty good versatile card. Just 2 copies. I don't think we really need to play more than 2. Does get a little cloggy if you're playing against some decks that aren't really playing any creatures, but that's pretty rare nowadays. The next card here is, we got 4 counter spells. Just counter spell is counter spell. So the card is sometimes not as great, mainly if you're playing against a deck that is playing Loris or something really low mana. You're trading 2 mana for their 1 mana card sometimes, and that just kind of feels bad. But I mean, that's just control. You kind of have to just deal with that. And overall the card is really good. I personally would prefer Memory Lapse over Counterspell, but obviously that's a story for a different time. The next card I play is gonna be the Snapcasters. So the Snapcasters, pretty good. Good value, kind of a good small threat on the board, blocker. It's the only creature you really play. I've seen some builds they opt to not play any snaps at all, and they opt to play, I guess, Solitude, which is a little bit better perhaps. Solitude does take care of a lot of creature-based decks, and it itself is a pretty good card just to throw down on turn 5 if you wanted to. And that you can, or just flash it in for free, things like that. Those decks that opt to play Solitudes are also not too worried about their graveyard, where here we're a little bit more weak to graveyard removal because we are playing the Snap, but it's not too bad. Honestly, if they side in graveyard removal against you, I think you're fine. Honestly, you can just play this as a 2/1 beater. You still got your counter spells and everything else to deal with. Here I just got the 1 Kaya's guide guild. So pretty good card. I was playing 2 copies, but at my local tournaments, not too many people were playing graveyard based decks. They were mostly playing like Cascade decks. I was playing against Teamers. I was playing against Gruul, Jun, Cascade, and so this card is a little bit more dead against them. So as I was told, you have to play this card, and you have to be okay with using it as a 3 mana graveyard removal or a 3 mana creature removal, which is fine. I mean, honestly, you could probably play 2 copies or 3 copies, but I think with my next card is the reason why I'm not really playing too many Kayas, and it's there to kind of heal you up sometimes against burn decks, stall you for a little bit of time, and you can always flash it back with Snapcaster. So here, playing triple Teferi. So Teferi is he's a broken card, like no doubt. He's really good. one of the best 3 mana planeswalker. But as I mentioned, this is just kind of like a personal choice to play. Some people don't even play him, or they'll just sideboard him, which is fine. You could play other 3 mana spell cards instead, like Kaya or Esper Charm or something else, if you want to play more reactive, like the draw goal style, rather than um, playing tapped out. For me, I like dropping this when I know my opponent doesn't really have any sort of answer for it, and he himself answers a lot of cards. But yeah, at the same time though, he sometimes doesn't do enough. Obviously, if your opponent's dropping a bunch of 1 mana drop cards, Darcy, Monkey, Prowess stuff, then Teferi's not going to really be too useful. But um, he's a great card, great against control for sure. If you resolve Teferi, you essentially win against control players. I'm playing more of these because in my meta, at least, there's a lot of Cascade decks, and Cascade decks are extremely weak to Teferi, since they won't get their Cascade trigger off. So that's the reason why I'm playing 3. And most of the time, my opponents, when they see Teferi drop, they will drop everything that they're trying to do and get rid of Teferi. Either they'll lightning bolt it, play haste creatures, whatever they have to just try to run it over and get it off the board. So I think three Teferi is fine, and he sometimes serves as a expensive cantrip, I guess. So there's that. Um, Next card. I should just hold my deck here. Next card here is going to be the 4 Archmage Charm. So Archmage Charm is very versatile, very good card. Quite expensive though to play in terms of mana. So you have to really build your mana base around trying to get at least 3 blues by turn 3 or turn 4 to try to play this card. It's great against Hammer Time, great against a lot of decks. Problem is it's just very taxing on your mana base. So there's an argument that you could just play 3 rather than 4. Gonna try out 4 because every time I saw it, I did like it. I did want to see it. I was playing Esper Charm over the 3rd or the 4th Archmage Charm before, but Esper Charm hasn't really proved its worth to me in that sense. A lot of decks I play against, they empty their hand out pretty quickly, so it's not like I'm gonna get their Esper Charm's discard effect. And there's not too many enchantments you have to worry about. The only enchantment that you really have to worry about in this particular deck is Blood Moon. Blood Moon will really hurt you, and you'll see some other cards that I play that tries to combat Blood Moon, because in my meta, a lot of people play Jun Blood Moon. My friend plays Blue Moon, things like that. And so, 3-color decks, the worst enemy is Blood Moon. You don't want to auto lose to a Blood Moon, and so there's other cards in my deck that will try to combat that. But overall, Archmage Charm, the choice of 3 or 4, and the idea here is to either, most of the time, like when I play Arena Historic, I hit myself for 2 to draw 2, or not hit myself, but I target myself and draw 2. You don't really want to spend 3 mana to counter a card, especially 3 blue, because that's not too great, not too great of a trade off. But sometimes you have to, and so don't be afraid to use it as a counter spell, but you definitely want to use it as a draw card more than a counter spell. The gain control effect, really good against Hammer Time. They play a bunch of 1 mana stuff. You take control of their creature. It's great. Take control of like lantern stuff. Like I played against a control lantern or lantern control, taking their their codexes and their other things. It's pretty good. I've taken people's sharks with this thing, and so yeah, overall pretty good card. Next is just 2 Cryptic Commands. Sorry for the glare there. I find this card to be sometimes really good and sometimes really bad. So I say that because it just, based off of my meta, it's kind of quick. And so sometimes a 4 mana counter spell, I mean, yeah, it's more than just a 4 mana counter spell, but it is very expensive, and lots of decks, you're clocked to turn 3. You have 3 turns to kind of really um, stabilize and maintain control of the board, and sometimes mana crypt or cryptic command, sorry, cryptic command is a little too expensive to play. So I'm just trying out 2. Honestly, you could probably just cut this card altogether. It doesn't really matter too much. I do find the returning the permanent part pretty cool, pretty neat there, and so that's why I keep it in to deal with certain permanents that I otherwise don't have any answers to. Next off, I have the 2 Jace here. I'm kind of a planeswalker collector, so I tend to collect a bunch of different arts of planeswalker, and they tend to be kind of expensive. So you can definitely just get the cheaper Jaces, and not have to try to bling out your deck or anything. But Jace is here. Some people opt to not play him at all. He is kind of a good card. He's definitely a good card, but he is a little weak in terms of what he can do in this particular meta. As I mentioned, it's very quick. He's great if you're able to maintain the board state and you have open mana to kind of protect him, stuff like that. He will win you the game. He is a win con, but unfortunately, the meta is quite quick, and sometimes by turn 4 you aren't going to be really playing him. But I am playing 2 because I do kind of want to win con. This deck kind of lacks that. That sort of that power to kind of close the game out, and so even though I say that, you're optimally you're always gonna go for the brainstorm effect. You're not really gonna go for the fate seal effect as much. But I guess he will draw you cards to try to close out the game. I guess I guess that's how I think about Jace when I play him. And his his -1 is still pretty good. I mean, it hits big things. It hits Murktide and things like that. And unlikely your opponent's gonna be able to recast Murktide the next turn if they play it. So he's kind of like a miniature Teferi, and that or a bigger Teferi. Yeah, you could probably play 1 or 0 or just I have 2, so I'm just playing 2. Next off, once again, as I said, I like collecting arts of planeswalkers and stuff like that. So here I have 2 big Teferi, the Hero Dominaria. He's essentially the centerpiece of the deck, and he's basically the main win con. Once you put him down, most of the time your opponent cannot remove him. At least from my experience, once I place him down, I'm just upticking away to essentially winning and drown out my opponent with the resources. But if you're behind and your opponent has a huge board state, then yeah, he's not going to be too great. All the cards that we played previously is to help us to get to the point where we can play him safely and win off of that, and basically just protect him or Jace, either one. I've seen some people play 3 copies. I've seen some people play 1. I think 2 is fine. In case 1 dies, you have another one as a backup. I think 3 might get a little too cloggy because he is 5 mana, and opening up a hand with like 2 of these in your hand or 3 of them in your hand, it's gonna be a bad time for you. Next off, we're gonna go ahead and go over the land base here. So this is kind of just what I tested out, what I liked, and what has worked so far for me. It's not the most optimized mana base, but it's something I've tested so far, and it's worked okay. Could definitely be more optimized, and if you have any opinions, just go ahead and let me know here. I'll start off with the there's a lot of glare there, so I'll put it over here. Celestial Colonnade. So essentially, this thing is kind of like a win con in itself. Once you're at a point where you have enough mana to protect yourself, and you just have extra mana to dump in, especially with Teferi, if you have Teferi and this on board, it's very unlikely you're going to be losing, because you'll be able to swing in for 4/4 and untap 2. Essentially, you're only playing 3 mana to hit your opponent in the face for 4 every turn, so not too bad. And he himself has got vigilance, so he stays untapped. sorry, he stays untapped as he comes back as a land. So pretty good card. Only one because you don't want to play too many tap lands because it is a fast format. Playing too many tap lands means you're gonna die to aggro really quickly and not gonna be able to have your counter spells up and ready, things like that. Next, I play just the one Trinome here. So Trinome here is just really optional. The reason I play it is just for the extra 4th mana. It rarely comes up, but there's been times where if I needed that 4th mana for Prismatic Ending or Explosive Engineering, it has come up a few times, and I have removed other opponents' Jaces with Prismatic Ending. I have removed Sandras. I have removed other 4 mana creatures and things like that, and so it does come up here and there, and so it's nice to at least know that your deck is capable of having a 4th color for Prismatic Ending or the Explosive Engineering if it comes down to that. But yeah, just the one. I was testing out 2 different Trinomes, but I found out, obviously, because as I mentioned, if you're playing too many tap lands, you're just gonna be in a bad you're just gonna have a bad time. So just 2 is fine. Oftentimes you'll just, if you have nothing to do turn 1, and you have a fetch land, you'll just fetch this right off the bat just to get it out of the way, and so you won't have to draw it and use it. Cool thing about the Trinome is if you are flooding out and you have it in hand, then you can just pitch it, cycle it, draw a card. So and overall it's kind of just a personal choice. You can probably replace it with something else if you prefer. Another card I'm playing here is Vantris. So Vantris, once again, it's kind of like a personal thing here for me. I'd rarely have Vantris come in tapped, so I don't really count it as a tap land per se, because you're playing so many island in this deck that you're almost never gonna have Vantris come in tapped. And it's it's cool if you have this and Teferi out. You can be just cycling through your deck and drawing the cards you need to win. But two, I think just 1 is fine. I don't think you need more than 1, and it's just there as an option. 1 Sunken Ruins. It's great to kind of filter some of your basic lands, because I do play a few basics in here, and to cycle some of the blue-white lands to get some black mana. I don't have a Mystic Gate. Some people are playing 1 of this and 1 Mystic Gate to go along with that, just to filter your basics and stuff like that, which is probably optimal. But I don't have the mixed Mystic Gate, so I'm just playing the 1 card I have here, which is Sunken Ruins, and it's optional. You can replace it with something else. You can replace it with Drowned Catacombs or something else if you prefer. It is kind of expensive for what they are. They're like, I think $15-16. Drowned Catacombs is like $3. So if you're on a budget, go with that instead. Here I have 2 Glacials. Reasoning for playing Glacials, you do need the white, but you don't need the white that fast. Oftentimes you don't really need White Source turn 1, and so I'm okay with getting my White Source turn 2 or later. And so 2 Glacials is great. They rarely come in tapped. Haven't had that issue really. So 2 Glacials is fine. And the other check land I'll play is the 1 Drowned Catacombs, and you'll see why I only play 1 Drown. And so that's just kind of like I'll explain in a second, since I keep rambling on here. So the reason why I play 1 Drown is I'm playing 3 Watery Graves, so 3 shock lands here. Most people only play 2, but because I'm playing Thoughtseize in the main, and I was playing 4, I wanted a black source immediately during my opening hand, and obviously if you had Drown, you're not going to be able to have this come in untapped. So you would Watery Graves, Thoughtseize your opponent, see what they're playing. I mean, Thoughtseize sometimes is better to play on turn 2, but for me, since I'm playing counter spells, I'm just gonna try to Thoughtseize turn 1, turn 2, have the counter spell active. But since you could technically just cut out the Thoughtseizes and cut this out and just play 2 and play a different land, That's an option. So I might change this based on some further testing. Since I'm only playing 2 Thoughtseize, it might not be necessary to have the third Watery Graves. And just 2 Hollow Fountains here. Yeah, just get your white source and white and blue. Basically, almost all my lands give blue source because that's very important for the counter spell and for Cryptic and for Archmage Charms. You need those counter spells, or you need those colors to make those cards active. Next here we play the package of 5 basics here. As I mentioned, this deck is really weak to Blood Moon. In my Grixis deck, it's weak to Blood Moon too, but I can at least use red mana to cast certain spells. And here, if they put Blood Moon out or Magnus of the Moon, you're screwed. If you have just only checks and shocks, and they play the Blood Moon on you, you're done for. You're gonna have to scoop it up if you don't have at least a few basics in play to be able to cast your spells. You need at least these 3, so you need 1 of each minimum. So that way, or even just these 2 if you didn't want to. So the reasons why I say you need at least a Plains and Island is if you're playing Teferi or you're playing Prismatic, then you should be able to, in theory, remove the Blood Moon with just these 2 land cards. But obviously, basics are still nice for when you go against decks are playing Path to Exile, or they're playing Assassin Trophy, or they're playing Field of the Rune. You want maybe a few copies, maybe 1 of each, or even just just those 2, just so you can fetch out when that comes to. Granted, this does make your colors available to you a little bit weaker because you're playing these 5. But that's why people who play more basics like this, they play the Mystic Gate or the Sunken Runes to help filter the lands when they for additional colors. So if I might try to find a Mystic Gate to add into my deck, but for now that's what I have. And then I'm just gonna go through all these shock lands here. So, or sorry, not shock lands, the fetch lands. So we have 4 polluted. Probably the best one in this deck is because if you want to try a Thoughtseize turn 1 or have Fatal Push Up, this is the way to go. This is what you want. So definitely 4 polluted. This right here, I guess, could be 4 flooded. I just have the marshes because I found it for cheap, so I just picked one up rather than picking up another strand. Also, the reasoning why I have the marsh over a 4th strand was for the fact that I was playing Thoughtseize. I was like, oh, if I can turn 1, pitch this, go into a a swamp or something, I guess, or if I'm playing against Blood Moon, if I have this, I can at least get my white or black source that I would probably need to combat the Blood Moon. It's come up once or twice, a few times that I've actually used this to its intended purposes. But honestly, you could play the 4 flooded and just call it a day. You don't really need to play this. It's probably the worst fetch land. That's why I only play 1. And I guess the other argument is, which would probably never really come up if they play something like what's that card? Is it Excavate? Eviscerate? No. Surgical Precision, I think. Either way, or Surgical Extraction. There you go. I guess if you need your land to hit one of these, you lose your 4 flooded strands, and you might be mana screwed or something. But that hasn't come up yet, so I don't think there's a real argument to not play a 4 flooded. But that's what I have. All right, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and move over to my side deck, or sideboard, I guess. So this is just a card I picked up at Comic-Con. Just a cool metal card. I use that as kind of like a divider in my deck box. Get a lot of compliments about it. It's a cool card. Not like there's any trading with it or anything. It's just a metal card. So here, first off, I have just 1 Explosive Engineering. You could play 2 or more. I think 1's okay. Most of the time, you don't want to be spending 3 manas to remove a 1/1. This could be a little too slow. But what I liked about this card is you can remove things that are like Amulet Titan or Amulet from the Titan deck. You can remove stuff from Lantern control, stuff like that, and this is what this is for. Or you can kill rhinos with it. You can kill food tokens with it, stuff like that. So it's a versatile card. So I think playing at least one is a good. You can play more if you want to, but that's that. And here I have my two other Thought Seizes, and honestly you could probably play even Inquisition or not even play these at all. I wanted to play this because there are some well, I wanted to play it because I still like love Thought Seize. It's one of my favorite like black cards, and the main reason why I even play black in all of my my color or combo decks, or not, sorry, in all of my my decks usually includes black because of Thought Seize, both in historic and modern. So two here just in case you do play against other control matchups. Thought Seize is going to be great against them. For Thought Seize, you can get rid of a counter spell. Thought Seize, you get rid of a planeswalker or whatever threat they have, and they'll either spend 2 or 3 mana just to counter this, and that's fine, or they play a Force of Negation and they counter this, and you 2-for-1 them. So I think Thought Seize is still really good in those matchups, and in those matchups your life total doesn't really matter. They're not really attacking you anyways, and this is still really good against combo decks, and it's good against decks like Primeval Titan decks. So Primeval Titan decks, we are a heavy based counterspell deck, right? So we're control. So certain decks they have Caverns of Souls, and your counterspells will not do anything with to that. So this is one way to get rid of Titan without ever letting them cast it or letting it hit the field. Combos really well with Teferi. You have Baby Teferi, you plus them, you play this on their turn, and it essentially becomes instant speed, counter spell, whatever. So pretty good still in that sense. 2 Dolphin Beetles for the control matchup. Sometimes if they play a Planeswalker or something like that, you don't want it to ever hit the field or the board. Just hard counter it, and they just can't do anything to this, so which is nice. Honestly, I debated between this or Mystical Dispute, but I think this might be a little bit better for the fact that it's uncounterable. But then again, Mystical Dispute is more useful against decks like the Murktide decks and stuff like that. So I mean, I'll think about this. I have to yet really side it in because I haven't really played against any other control matchups. Other than my friends, all my friends that do play Modern, we all play control because we like playing control decks. So it might be useful against my friend, but not really useful against any other opponents I play at locals. They're all playing creature-based decks. Here I have Sanctifier Invect. Pretty good card. She's double white, so she's sometimes a little hard to cast on turn 2. But she's fine. Like, you don't really need to cast her on turn 2. You can save her for a little bit later. Her best effect being that she's graveyard removal against most of the popular black and red decks. She hits like all the Lurrus decks. She hits a lot of Izzet decks. Jeskai decks, things like that. Just you need something that to get rid of their graveyard, to get rid of their resources. She's the go-to card. You don't really care about banishing your black cards. I mean, honestly, you're only really banishing exiling. I'm so used to Yu-Gi-Oh, so you're only really exiling like Thought Seizes and Fatal Pushing. You never really care about those as much, anyways. So Sanctifier Invect. I'll talk about the other options to this deck a little bit later on. But I chose to play her, and she's helped against burn decks. Burn has made a resurgence in the modern meta, and so you play her. There's no way for burn to really get rid of her, so she just sits there and trump blocks, which is really great. Or if you need to finish them off, they can't really block this thing. They just go 4 for each turn, and you're clocking them faster than they can clock you. So yeah, really good card. But yeah, just the double white, a little sometimes hard to cast. Next here I have 4 Aether Gusts, or sorry, not 4, 3 Aether Gusts. As I mentioned earlier, this deck is very weak to Blood Moon, and there's a lot of green and red decks in my locals. So I think 3 Aether Gusts is the way to go. It's a good way to get rid of Blood Moons that are sticking on the board. Good against Amulet Titan. You know, if they have Caverns of Souls, obviously you can't counter it. So they cast the Titan, you play this, and they kind of cry a little bit. Also gets over Summoner Veil, or Veil of Summers. Sorry, that always kind of confused my cards there. So yeah, a really good card. Acts as a kind of like a counter spell, and kind of acts as removal too. So not much to say about that. Next here we have 2 more Kaya's guide, guild guide. So this is, you're gonna side this in against against burn decks, which helps because you can heal 4, and sack their creatures, and provides graveyard hate, and provides another win con too. So if you ever get to 6 mana, you can always entwine it, which is great. You can always recast it with Snapcasters. So just overall a good versatile card. I just didn't think I need more than one in my main deck, but yeah, this card's there if you need it. Just 1 Vindicate. You could probably maybe play 2 if you wanted to, but Vindicate is cool in the sense that it can hit lands, and so sometimes you're playing against Tron or something, you want to hit one of their lands. Also hits Planeswalkers. Deals with basically anything really. The only bad thing about it is that it costs us 3 mana, so it's kind of expensive to play. But overall, great card. Not much to say about it. I've used it to hit my opponent's lands most of the time that I can't deal with. But yeah, as you can see this pile over here, I'll talk about some additional cards that you can try out that I haven't got around to testing yet, but will mean to. The second to last card here is Kaya. So in my experience, Kaya has always been great, and it's one of my favorite side deck cards, both when I played in Standard and in Historic. She's pretty good here, but at the same time she's kind of expensive. But for what she does, I think it's a good reason to at least play 1 copy. I've won several times using her ult effect, ironically, against certain matchups where I'm just exiling their graveyard, and then just ult to either survive or just for lethal. A lot of things in this meta are just 1 mana, and so if they have just a 1 mana creature and nothing else, you play her, you exile their 1 mana creature, and then you keep plussing up with her. And most of the time your opponents won't really deal with her. She's not very threatening in that sense. Still kind of ignore her from my experience, and that kind of sometimes bites them in the butt if they leave her to kind of run rampant. And then the last card here, actually haven't seen any play by me yet, but a lot of people are playing it because their meta is a little more diverse than mine. So I might just take it out because it's not really serving me any purpose. But it's Factoring Gust here, and this card is kind of like a blowout card against, at least from what I understand, is a blowout card against like food decks. So decks that are generating a bunch of food tokens, or treasure tokens, stuff like that. This is what will blow them out. But it is kind of expensive. It's 5 mana, so I mean, I haven't got to play it yet, so I don't really have an opinion of it. But I am playing it because I have faced one food deck in my meta, but I was playing Grixis at that time, so this card haven't seen play anyways yet. So I'll play it for now. If it pops up, cool. If it doesn't, I might just take it out for like another explosive engineering or something. So that's the deck, and I'm just gonna go ahead and try to briefly talk about some additional cards that you can try to play. The most apparent one, and the one that's probably missing, that I don't have, is Chalice of the Void. So Chalice of the Void has been doing quite a bit of work in the modern meta lately, which is cool. It is definitely a very good card. I would probably play it or side it if I had a copy. But at the prices they're going for, I'm not really too keen on picking it up as a sideboard deck or a sideboard card. Some people are maining it in white-blue control or Zorius control. They are indeed playing it in the main. I think 2 copies in the main and 2 in the side, and it really would probably help this deck actually, because that way you can play it and then you can not have to worry about like 2 mana creature or like 1 mana cards or 0 mana cards, stuff like that. So if I do buy a copy or 2 that aren't too expensive, maybe I'll pick it up and try them out. But they're definitely better in, I'd say, Jeskai or just the Azorius control rather than in Esper, because Esper you are running Fatals and stuff like that, and so you are running quite a bit of 1 mana cards, and that it might backfire, I guess. um, if you don't like, I guess here are the 4 cards I'll kind of briefly talk about. So, considers here, can play it over the op. Same thing with this right here, spreading seas. So spreading seas can be sort of a good cantrip and disruption. So I've seen people main deck these. Some people play 4, some people play 2. It might work really well with Teferi. You can, if you need to draw something or draw 2 cards, if this is one on one of their lands, you can Teferi this back, play it again, draw another card. So Spreading Seas is a card I thought about playing, but I haven't gotten around to testing yet. Probably pretty good sideboard too. Definitely want to hit things like Tron lands. You want to hit Urza Sagas, stuff like that. So I do maybe want to try this out later, but for now I'm just gonna try to play my deck as is. And I think I've already talked about Consider earlier, so I'm not gonna really go over that too much. Next card is Force of Negation. Some people main this, some people side it. I've tried both, and I guess I just found it kind of, at least in my opinion, somewhat underwhelming. Just because the way I play, there was oftentimes nothing worth forcing. Maybe because I'm not playing enough copies. I only have 1. Maybe if I played 2 or 3, it probably would make a more of an impact. So I'm probably just wrong in that sense. But the idea was to drop my planeswalker and then use this to protect them since I'm probably tapped out. But oftentimes they're not. They're using creatures to deal with my planeswalker. They're not really using any spells or anything too crazy to deal with my planeswalker. So most of the time I just didn't even use the free mechanic with it. I ended up just hard playing it for 3 mana to counter something. So I don't know. It's something you could try out. And there's that. Search for Skanta is another card that I liked that I did play. I might put it back, might not. Great card. Love it in Historic. It's one of my favorite engine card. It filters through your entire deck, and when you don't need that filtering anymore, you flip it, you start plussing with it, and your opponent, if you're playing a control matchup or something, if they don't have something like Spreading Seas or Alpine Moon or Blood Moon, then you're all good. Because my meta is so heavy in Blood Moon and stuff like that, and it's quite quick, I probably don't want to be tapping out on turn 2 for this as often as I would. And obviously Blood Moon just turns this off if you do flip it. Obviously, if you keep it as a enchantment, then you can just filter your cards. What I found is I don't need I like the filter, to dump the lands, but I wasn't really doing anything with my grave either. I always already had a pretty big grave before I'm able to cast the Snapcasters, so I don't think I need to play it, but I could test it out some more and see how that goes. Another card you could play is Drown and Lock. Drown and Lock, still a really good card. It's still one of my favorite counter spells and removal card. In this format, it's particularly good because a lot of people are fetching and stuff like that, so they fill up the graves pretty quickly, and so Drown might be a card that you want to play. I'm playing Dam over Drown because for me, 2 mana to remove one tiny creature wasn't really worth it, and it couldn't really deal with the bigger creatures, at least in my meta, and that's why I opt to only play it, or opt not to play it right now, until I see that there's more a slower format, I guess. I wouldn't say slower format. Actually, I want to say like a format where I feel like I can play this and not die because I'm playing it, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to say. I love the card in every other format and deck I play, but just in this particular Esper build, I wasn't able to make it work too well. The other card I talked about was Esper Charm. Was really pretty good. You're mostly gonna be drawing cards off of it. It does potentially help against Blood Moon because it does destroy an enchantment. Problem is, I guess it's a little too slow because you need this in your hand when they cast the Blood Moon, so that way you can float the mana, let Blood Moon resolve, and then destroy it. If you draw this after Blood Moon resolves, then you're kind of done for anyways. The discarding effect, I maybe used it once or twice. It was kind of redundant with Thoughtseize, I guess, and that was the main thing. Is because I'm playing Thoughtseize, my opponent's hand was kind of dwindling into like next to nothing, anyways. So I didn't find it as useful. I mean, if you're opting to not play any Thoughtseize in the main deck, then you could probably play this, and it will help against other matchups to try to control your opponent's hands. So next couple cards are just some other. Oh, I don't know why I have that there. Some other optional lands that you can play. I tried playing Castle Arvindale. I really like it in every other format. I just didn't particularly like it in this deck because you are playing so many Archmage Charm. This card will not give you that blue, and if you draw this in your opening hand, if you're keeping a hand of like 2 lands or 3 lands, and this is not one of the cards you want to see. It makes it almost like you're playing with 1 land instead. So that's what I found when I was testing the card out, and I could never really get the 5 mana to make a human token that often, because the double white was sometimes hard for me to come by also. On top of this being also a white card, so I just opted to play another Glacial or Mystic Gate or Mystical Gate if I had that instead of Arundel. Same idea with Shrine. Shrine was good with Thoughtseize and stuff like that, but your land really wants to lean towards blue, so definitely this card. I played 3 Watery Graves over 2-2-1, which some people used to do. Yeah. This is the other Trinome you could try out instead if you don't like the other Trinome. Or you could play. I tried both, and I obviously didn't care for both because you're never really be playing Prismatic for 5. If you are, you're already in a lot of trouble, anyways. But I think 4 mana for Prismatic Command does come up sometimes, and you only need to play 1 additional color rather than get all 5 colors. Almost done here. Another side deck card that you could play was Dalfi. Dalfi, I liked Dalfi when I was testing him out, but I kind of found him kind of redundant with the Sanctifier Invect, so I just opted to not play him. And he was better when I was playing more Thoughtseize, because you would play him, maybe Thoughtseize your opponent on turn 3 or whatever, get rid of their Eldrazi or something, and then cast it for free. And I have done that before, where Thoughtseize someone's Eldrazi and cast it for free, and they just scoop it the next turn. But he's also kind of a win con in himself because nothing can really block him, other than other Dalfis. I don't think there's anything else in the meta right now with Shadows. So pretty good win con in it of itself if you do. Oftentimes, I guess you don't want to turn sideways too much with him because you do want to have him up just in case you need to cast the card for free. But I mean, he's there, so I mean, if you want to try it out, you can. Double black is not too hard to come in this deck. Double white is though, but double black is not super difficult. Another card you can play in the main or the side is Path to Exile, obviously. I opted not to play Path of Exile because I already have Fatal Pushes and Prismari and the Planeswalker to deal with most creatures, and so I don't really care for ramping up my opponent either. Granted, most people don't play that many basics anyways, but you could play him still, or play this. Still pretty good card to play in the main or the side. Second card here is this. So you could either play this or Sanctifier Invect. So you could either play Rest in Peace or Sanctifier, or the Delphi. I guess they all serve kind of the same purpose of the graveyard removal. You probably don't want to double up too much because replacement effects and the rulings of replacement effects in Magic. Obviously, your opponents can choose which effect they like to apply. Say if you had all three of these on board, they can choose which, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not mistaken, they can choose which effect they want to apply. Most likely they're just going to apply this or this one. They're never going to apply with Delphi. Obviously, because Delphi gives you the card with the token on it. So, the only reason I don't play Rest in Peace is because I have Snapcasters and I want to avoid hitting my snaps with it. There's scenarios where some people will side out their Snapcasters completely and then just play this. And this card does automatically win against quite a few decks in the meta now. So there's an argument to play this in the main and just side out the Snapcasters or whatever. But for now, I'm just gonna keep this on the side. I'm gonna test this, test out the Kaya's guild, and go from there. If I find that my graveyard removal in my side deck is not sufficient, then I'll put this in and try that out. Put this over here. Last couple of cards here. Yeah, just the Mystic Dispute is optional. Still a really good card. Great against Izzet decks, other blue control decks. Not much to say about it. I just decided to play Dovin's Veto over this. Here's a couple other optional cards that you might want to play. So in terms of the other type of board wipe that you might want would be Supreme Verdict, uncounterable, destroy all creatures. Not much to say about it. I decided to just not play too many flood or sweepers, even though my meta is a bit creature heavy. Oftentimes my opponent only has like one creature on the board because I'm already removing it with fatal pushes and stuff like that. They oftentimes, maybe at most, have two creatures on board. So the value of sweepers went down for me. So playing 4 mana to remove one creature is not too great. 4 mana to remove 2 creatures is pretty good, but if you're playing the deck correctly, you're gonna have to try to keep their creatures on their board to a minimum anyways. Cleansing Nova, it's kind of like a hybrid between this and Fractal Gust. I liked it in a historic, but it is 5 mana, so it is kind of expensive. And so I don't know if it's worth adding to the side deck or worth playing over Supreme Verdict or the Fractal. At least Fractal Gust, it's an instant speed, which is kind of cool. I didn't really realize that until I read it and saw it was an instant speed. But Cleansing Over is one of the other good board wipes, but kind of pricey for what it is. Anyways, I think that's all that I want to talk about. Don't think there's anything else here, but yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed. It's a bit of a long video, clocking on almost an hour of me just talking here. But yeah, in the future I'll probably show off my Grixis deck, and that I definitely have a lot more playtime with, and have tested out, and have definitely a better win rate than this Esper deck. I'm still trying to build out, seeing where I can go from there. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy. Sorry if the quality is a little crappy. I'm just filming this on an older iPhone. Don't have a camcorder or a professional camera anymore. So hopefully the audio is okay and the video is okay. But anyways, have a good one.